Imagine a bank with over 2 centuries of history, one of Britain's oldest financial institutions, suddenly collapsing overnight because of a single person's mistake. That's what happened in 1995 when Barings Bank went bankrupt due to Nick Leeson, a young trader who made disastrous bets on the derivatives market, particularly focusing on futures contracts related to the Nikkei index. Let's dive into the story and understand how it all unraveled. Nick Leeson joined Barings in Singapore as a derivatives trader in 1992. At 28 years old, he had ambition but limited experience with high-risk investments like futures contracts, which are bets on future prices of assets such as stocks or currencies. But here's the kicker, Leeson wasn't just trading, he was also responsible for managing Barings accounts in Singapore and Japan. He started off well enough, making several successful trades that earned him bonuses and praise from his superiors. But soon, things took a turn for the worse. In early 1995, Leeson began placing large bets on Nikkei index futures, predicting they would rise. The Nikkei is an index of stocks in Japan's stock market. Here's where the trouble started. Leeson made these trades using Barings Bank's proprietary account, a special trading account used for risky investments that aren't typically part of regular client activities. But instead of reporting his losses honestly, he hid them by manipulating the books and making false entries to cover up the shortfall. For instance, if one day Leeson lost money on a trade but needed the books to show profits, he would enter false numbers in the account records. This allowed him to pretend that everything was fine when it was. As his losses grew larger, so did the need for more fake entries and bigger cover-ups. By February 1995, Leeson's secret losses had grown to around £827 million, roughly 4 times Barings' total capital at the time. The bank was on the brink of collapse, but no one knew because all the numbers were falsified. This is what happens when you hide bad news, it only gets worse. Now let's talk about the mechanics behind this mess. Leeson's main issue was leverage. He used borrowed money to make bets on the futures market. The idea here is that if the bet pays off, you earn a significant return. But if it doesn't, you lose more than just your own capital because you've borrowed additional funds to increase the potential gain or loss. For example, let's say Barings had £1 million, and Leeson wanted to place a much larger bet of £50 million on Nikkei futures. He could do this by borrowing the extra £49 million. If the Nikkei went up as he predicted, he would make millions in profit. But if it didn't, Barings would lose that borrowed money plus interest and fees. In early 1995, Japan's economy was facing tough times. The Nikkei stock market index began to decline rather than rise, and Nick Leeson's speculative trades started going against him rapidly. His losses accumulated quickly, and he could not cover them with Barings Bank's available funds or new profits. That's when the situation became extremely precarious. Leeson employed various tactics to conceal his growing deficit, transferring money between accounts, creating false records, and making personal calls to senior management to convince them that everything was under control. However, by February 1995, the losses had become too significant to hide any longer. On February 23, 1995, a fire at the Osaka Securities Exchange caused major disruptions in the financial markets, further destabilizing Nick Leeson's already precarious positions. By this point, his cover-ups had become so elaborate that he needed every trick under the sun just to keep things running for one more day. The final straw came on February 23, when a large loss was reported directly to Barings' headquarters in London. Senior management quickly realized something was very wrong and launched an investigation into Leeson's accounts. What they found shocked everyone. Losses exceeding £827 million, far beyond anything the bank could realistically recover from. Barings Bank had been around since 1762, older than the United States. It was a pillar of British finance, known for its stability and reputation. Yet in just 1 year in 1995, Nick Leeson managed to unravel it all through sheer recklessness and dishonesty. The collapse forced Barings into liquidation, essentially shutting down operations entirely. This story is more than just a tale of one man's greed. It's a cautionary lesson about the dangers of poor risk management. It demonstrates how small mistakes can escalate into larger issues when they are concealed and compounded by further misjudgments. The ripple effects were significant. Barings' collapse had wide-reaching consequences, eroding investor confidence in financial institutions across Asia and Europe. The bank's failure sent shockwaves through global markets, temporarily disrupting international banking activities for several weeks following the event. In short, one man's mistakes cost millions, brought down an established institution, and had significant repercussions in financial markets worldwide. It began with several unauthorized trades that were not reported or monitored properly. Now let's look at what happened next. After Barings collapsed, Nick Leeson fled to Malaysia but was eventually arrested and extradited back to Singapore, where he faced trial for his actions. In 1995, Leeson pleaded guilty to 6 criminal charges related to fraud, forgery, and breach of trust, receiving a sentence of 6 years in prison. But the story isn't just about punishment, it's also about prevention. Following the Barings Bank collapse in 1995, banks and financial regulators worldwide tightened their rules on risk management and oversight. This included stricter regulations for derivatives trading and clearer guidelines for reporting losses to prevent such catastrophic failures from happening again. For instance, following the Barings Bank collapse, many banks implemented more robust internal controls and monitoring systems to detect anomalies such as Leeson's hidden losses earlier. They also mandated regular audits of financial statements by independent third parties to ensure accuracy and transparency. The collapse of Barings Bank in 1995 was a pivotal moment in financial history, emphasizing the critical need for robust risk management practices, including honest reporting, transparent oversight, and strict internal controls to prevent similar crises from occurring. So what can you learn from this story? First, always report your losses honestly rather than hiding them. Covering up mistakes only makes things worse over time. Second, understand that risk management isn't just about making good bets. It's also about knowing when to cut your losses and not exposing yourself to excessive risk with borrowed money. Lastly, be aware of how small missteps can escalate into major crises if left unaddressed. It is crucial to address even minor issues promptly to prevent them from growing larger and more problematic over time. Subject: Barings Bank collapse, the Nick Leeson story. In short, the collapse of Barings Bank illustrates how a single individual's actions can have significant repercussions in finance, underscoring the critical importance of transparency, integrity, and strong risk management practices. And here's one last thing to ponder. What if Leeson had just come clean about his losses early on? It might not have saved his job or reputation, but it could have prevented a crisis that significantly impacted Barings Bank and raised concerns in global financial markets. Sometimes the difficult truth is better than hiding in lies. This is educational and historical, not financial advice. If Barings Bank had fostered a culture where employees felt secure reporting issues, Leeson's unauthorized trading might have been detected sooner, potentially preventing the bank's collapse. A robust whistleblower policy could have played a crucial role in mitigating the crisis. Another crucial lesson is never to underestimate the importance of oversight and internal controls. Barings Bank failed to implement adequate safeguards to monitor Nick Leeson's trading activities. If more stringent regulations had been in place, the bank might have detected and addressed his risky behavior before it led to catastrophic losses. Think about this: what if other banks had learned from Barings' mistakes? Instead, many institutions continued to take similar risks until the next crisis struck. It's crucial for financial institutions to learn and adapt swiftly after such failures. Remember, a single bad apple can spoil the whole barrel. In Nick Leeson's case, his reckless behavior didn't just harm him. It devastated thousands of people who had no knowledge of the risky trading activities occurring behind the scenes at Barings Bank. In short, transparency and strong risk management are not optional in finance. They are essential for preventing financial disasters, as demonstrated by the collapse of Barings Bank due to risky trading practices. This is educational and historical, not financial advice. So why did it take so long for other banks to learn the lesson? Part of the issue was a lack of accountability and oversight. After the collapse of Barings Bank in 1995 due to Nick Leeson's unauthorized trading losses, some executives faced consequences, but many in the industry felt insulated from similar repercussions. This created an environment where risky behavior could thrive without fear of serious consequences. Another critical factor was the lack of effective regulatory oversight. Regulatory bodies are intended to identify and mitigate such risks before they escalate into crises. However, the failure at Barings Bank demonstrated that regulators can sometimes fall short, as regulations often struggle to keep pace with evolving and innovative financial practices. Consider this: when the dust settled after the Barings collapse in 1995, many experts pointed out that similar warning signs had been present years earlier during the crisis at Baring Brothers, Baring's predecessor, in the early 19th century. This historical context shows how systemic failures can repeat over decades, unless there's a cultural shift towards more rigorous oversight and risk management. In short, transparency, accountability, and robust regulation are crucial for preventing future financial disasters. Without these safeguards, another incident like the Barings Bank collapse could occur. This is educational and historical, not financial advice. Here's how the system failed again at Barings Bank in 1995, in a way that mirrored past mistakes. Leeson's actions were part of a broader pattern of risk mismanagement. Barings Bank's leadership failed to address early warning signs such as unusual trading patterns and significant losses, prioritizing short-term profitability over long-term sustainability. This issue highlights the common problem where organizations prioritize performance metrics at the expense of prudent risk management practices. Consider this: if Barings Bank's board had established stricter controls and conducted more frequent audits, Nick Leeson's fraudulent activities might have been detected sooner. However, the prevailing corporate culture tended to overlook or suppress negative information rather than confronting it directly. This approach allowed risks to escalate unchecked until they resulted in a catastrophic collapse. Another key factor was regulatory oversight. Financial regulations often struggle to keep up with innovative schemes that exploit loopholes. In Baring's case, regulators did not detect the risk because Leeson concealed his trades through complex derivatives and offshore accounts. This highlights how even robust rules can be circumvented by individuals exploiting legal gray areas. Ultimately, the collapse of Barings Bank in 1995 serves as a stark reminder that financial systems need ongoing reform and vigilance to stay ahead of potential threats. The next crisis won't look exactly like the one in 1995. It will have new challenges and technologies. But if history repeats itself without learning from past mistakes, the consequences could be equally devastating. This is educational and historical, not financial advice.